Hi, everybody. This is Beth Walker. I am the author of the book, Never Pay Retail for College, the founder of the Center for College Solutions, and the mother of a college freshman. So I am living the dream right along with you. It's my pleasure today to walk you through my philosophy and help you understand what you're about to embark upon, because it's quite a journey. When you think about college, you think about how much it costs and how incredibly expensive it is. And what's happened in the last 20 years is almost unbelievable. On an inflation adjusted basis, things like computers and phones and televisions, a lot of technology is actually less expensive than it was 20 years ago. Cars, couches, clothes, they cost just about the same. But when you think about college, aside from a trip to the hospital, nothing in our consumer-driven culture has accelerated in terms of cost as the rate of college. So very few of us have been able to save our way to putting our kids through school. And when I look at that chart, what immediately comes to mind for me is Mount Everest. In fact, in the first chapter of my book, Never Pay Retail for College, I talk about that. I talk about the fact that we are on our own personal financial trek up Mount Everest. And most of us would really benefit from working with an experienced Sherpa to make sure that not only do we get up the mountain, but we get back down safely. So in my book, Never Pay Retail for College, I talk a lot about the fact that college is a multi-year project plan. And I boiled it down to 12 critical components, 4 of which are the responsibility of the student, 4 of which are the responsibility of the parents, and 4 which require the student and the parents to collaborate to create the best possible outcome. The kids have to do their work. They have to get the grades they're going to get, the test scores they're going to get. They need to be able to complete the admissions applications and the essays, get letters of recommendation. And importantly, they need to know why they're going to school and what they're there to accomplish. That's where self-awareness and mindset come in. Mom and dad, their job is largely financial. It's understanding, hey, how does the Department of Education or the College Board view our household from a minimum out-of-pocket cost perspective? What role will financial aid play in the way that we go about paying for school? Are we on track for retirement? And how much can we actually set aside to educate all kids all years? Those are answers that we need to know. Mom and dad, the student, they need to come together and select schools that have a history of discounting the cost for students like yours. We need to set ourselves up to be eligible for merit-based discounts from the get-go so that we put ourselves in a position to compare those award letters in the March timeframe of the senior year and hopefully be able to get the schools to sharpen their pencil and eliminate cost as the deciding factor in the whole project plan. And then we've got to come up with a game plan to help the student transition successfully, because it's dramatically different to go to high school as a senior and go to college as a freshman. The expectations are greater. The accountability for the student versus the parents are dramatically different. And oftentimes we have not done a great job of preparing our kids to act in that adult capacity. So transitioning is a big deal. The IQ components for the student, GPA, test scores, strength of the high school curriculum, in general, the high schools do a decent job there. Where I find parents having to supplement the efforts of the high school curriculum are in the EQ or the emotional intelligence areas, helping that student understand how to play to their strengths, where they're likely to thrive in the world of work, what majors are going to support their probable career path, how to step foot on campus with a sense of purpose and a plan so that you're in and out in 4 years with a bachelor's degree. Those self-awareness and mindset elements of this project plan are not to be underestimated. 9 times out of 10, when our students are statistics, meaning they're in the 50% of kids that take 6 years to get a 4-year bachelor's degree, it's because they didn't know what they were setting out to accomplish when they went to school. We have the science, we just aren't using it in education. So we owe it to ourselves and our students to really help them strengthen how they show up in those two areas. The parents, as I said earlier, their responsibility is largely financial. What is your EFC? Expected family contribution, which, by the way, is assigned to you when you complete the FAFSA or the CSS profile. Every family should apply for financial aid, even if you're not going to get a nickel out of the need-based system. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. But knowing if you are on the right path for retirement, how to get on track and stay on track, and then back into the amount of money you should be budgeting for school, that's a critical part of the planning process for parents. The category of aid that you fall into should really drive your planning priorities. If you are a Category 1 household, meaning that the cost of attendance at any given institution is always higher than the expected family contribution as calculated by the Department of Education and the College Board, then you want to optimize your aid eligibility. You're going to be focused on managing your balance sheet and keeping your EFC low. Most of the families that I have the privilege of working for fall into the Category 2 or Category 3 households. Category 2 households, you're kind of in no man's land. Sometimes you will qualify for need-based aid, sometimes you won't. So choosing schools strategically for your students to apply to, applying to schools that have a history of giving away free money to students like yours, that's critical. Understanding that when you have a couple of kids overlapping in college and you're eligible for more aid during those years, school selection is going to be paramount. Category 3 households, those tend to be the business owners, the very highly compensated executives. We have to look past the financial aid system to the income tax code and identify areas where we might be able to create tax scholarships, get our rich uncle, Uncle Sam, to redirect some of the money that is going to taxes every year and send that to the colleges. So when your neighbor or your relative or a friend says, hey, we got this great deal, or we received all kinds of aid, don't think for a minute that just because they're in your circle that their financial circumstances are the same. Everybody's situation is a little bit different. Here's the math as it relates to college. COA minus EFC equals need. What does that mean? The cost of attendance, which is the all-in number for the university, tuition and fees, books, room and board, transportation to and from, miscellaneous costs. It's the whole enchilada. If you go on to any university's website and you type cost of attendance into their search box, this is where you're going to get the numbers, the true cost of attending that institution. From that, they subtract the EFC, the expected family contribution. How does that number get calculated? Well, you have to report the income of the parents, the assets of the parents, the income of the student, the assets in the name of the student, the age of the oldest parent, and the number of people living in that household, the number that are in college full-time and the number that are under that roof. Those data points go into their magic formula and it spits out what they believe to be your minimum out-of-pocket cost for college. I assure you it'll be much higher than you think is reasonable. There's not a single category that asks for, hey, what are your liabilities? What's your mortgage? What's your car payment? Do you have any student loans? So please understand that the expected family contribution calculated by the government is decidedly higher than you're going to believe is fair. But it's the difference between the two, the cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution, that equals this category called need. And that's the area that the financial aid officer at each college actually concerns themselves with. They look at that need and say, what do I have in my little treasure chest to offer this particular student? How much of that will be loans? How much of that will be grants? How much of that could be a scholarship? The need-based system is really a pass-through for a lot of loans. The merit-based system, which is largely driven by the admissions committee, looks at unweighted GPA, standardized test scores, and the strength of the high school curriculum. How many honors classes did you take? How many AP or IB courses did you take? And then there's a significant difference between the way a state university puts together their award package versus a private university. State universities just don't have the same level of endowment dollars. Remember, they're dependent largely on state legislators and the budgeting process. So they're often going to meet anywhere from 50 to 65% of the unmet need. The private universities who go out and do fundraising and have their own endowment dollars oftentimes will meet 75 to 100% of the unmet need. So even though when you file your FAFSA and your CSS profile, the government's going to calculate an EFC, there may be an additional gap between what the school is going to offer and what the government says is your fair share. It's just really important that you understand how these numbers are derived so you can plan accordingly. This represents a personal economic model. It's just a way for us to see how money works. You go to work to earn an income, and in your lifetime, you're going to earn literally millions of dollars. But none of it stays in this big tank. It comes to you in the form of every other week or twice a month paychecks, hits that doggone tax filter, which by the way is bolted on, and then it hits the lifestyle regulator. And this is where you're making some decisions about how much money is going to be consumed and gone forever, supporting your current lifestyle, like the houses you live in, the cars you drive, the way you educate your kids, the kind of vacations and memories that you make along the way. And how much energy and effort are you going to put into moving money up this future lifestyle tube into these savings and investment tanks, so that when you're no longer going to work to earn a paycheck, you can open these distribution valves and continue to support the lifestyle to which you've grown accustomed. That's what we call a personal economic model. What parents are trying to do is maintain their current lifestyle, stay on track for retirement, and along comes college, which is a large cost in a very short period of time. And you know what? That creates some financial pressure. That's why school selection, strategically choosing the schools that your student's going to apply to, is either your number one or your number two priority in this process. You want to fish where the fish are for your student. Pick schools that have a history of giving away discounts. Because just like the airlines and the hotels used to do, colleges have dynamic pricing algorithms to determine the price. Are you a frequent visitor? Do you have a lot of points with us? How does a college make that decision? It's real simple. Ironically, if a parent can afford to pay, which they evaluate based on how you fill out your FAFSA and your CSS profile, and the student bubbles up to the top 25% of kids typically admitted to this freshman class based on GPA test scores and strength of high school curriculum, ironically, they're going to offer you some discounts. They're going to create incentives for your student to attend. Why? Because after doing this for decades and decades, here's what they've learned. If they bring smarter, wealthier kids to campus, they're going to rise in the ranking, which allows them to continue to take their prices up. So they're willing to make a present day investment in a future endowment stream, because they also know that the kids that are in the top 25% tend to finish on time, become productive members of society, and 20 years later, when they knock on their door and say, would you make a contribution to our endowment campaign, they're going to write a check. It's good business. It's good business for them to discount their costs to the right kind of candidate as they define right. So here's an example. This is a student that wanted to go to an expensive private school. The retail price this year was $70,000. But they liked this student and they said right off the bat, we're going to give you a chancellor scholarship. We're also going to give you a residence hall grant. So we're going to discount your price $27,000. And because you filled out the financial aid forms, we're also going to give you a very low cost student loan for $5,500. So that $70,000 cost was discounted by $32,500. That's a game changer in terms of the overall cost of attendance for this student. Now, I'm not saying that $33,000 isn't a meaningful amount and we still don't have a lot of work to do, but way too many families take a look at the advertised sticker price of $70,000 and say, you can't even apply there because we can't afford it. Well, the informed families know that they don't have to pay that retail price. Here's another example. Again, almost $58,000, but this student qualified for $15,000 worth of free money, and again, a low-cost student loan, taking $20,000 off that retail price. We've got an entirely different kind of conversation when we're looking at this cost versus where we started. And those are opportunities that you can create for yourself by knowing which schools are likely to provide discounts to your student. How can you figure that out? Well, you're probably going to need some help. This is an example of a tool that we use. We take the unweighted GPA, the number of honors courses or IB or AP courses the student has taken by the time they graduate. We look at their standardized test scores. And I know that we may be in a year of test optional, but it's part of the three-legged schools that committees have looked at for years and years and years. So we have to understand where this student shows up. How does the student do on written work? Are they demonstrating interest by being in communication with the various schools that they're applying to? Did they participate in state or national competitions in certain areas? Have they demonstrated leadership, mentoring, or volunteer experience? Have they received any recognition in any area that we need to know about? How about varsity sports or performing arts or working outside of the classroom? And then, of course, the EFC. This allows us to really look at how this student is going to measure up in terms of admissibility. Is that admissions committee likely to extend an offer? And are they an ideal fit? Meaning, will they earn discounts based on how that school historically awards kids that bubble up to that top 25%? Wouldn't it be nice to know that before you selected the schools and applied? Shouldn't you create your list with these things in mind? Absolutely. Choosing the right schools to apply to more than anything else. If somebody said to me, hey, Beth, you say there are 12 critical components to this college project plan. If you had to pick one, what would it be? It would be choosing the schools that are likely to give you a discount right out of the gate. College is a multi-year project plan. There is a sequence of success. And there is way too much money at stake today to be doing this with a 17-year-old and a guidance counselor in charge of the project. We've got to be better consumers of higher education. We've got to work with experts who know what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And so we say, hey, this is easy. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Number one, completely free resource. It's what we call our learning center. If you type into your browser, beth.strategiesforcollegelearningcenter.com, sfclearningcenter.com, It will take you to a series of videos that will unpack this project plan in a way that you can understand it and act upon it. It's a fabulous resource for you to use completely free. Another free resource, you can get on my calendar for a 30-minute college consultation. The purpose of the consultation is for me to understand where you are in your college project plan. Which components of the 12 critical components are going to have the most impact for your household? How do you prioritize your time and your energy? I'm happy to do that in a 30-minute consultation. And then if you want to check in later down the road, if there are things that we can do for you, because yeah, I've got subcontractors that are excellent at every part of this college project plan. You might not need anything more than the Learning Center and a 30-minute consultation. You might have some questions along the way. You might want to hire me to do more. The choice is yours, but I want to make myself accessible to you. So what you see here is how to get a hold of me: email, telephone, website. You know, my son and my husband in that picture at High Point University in High Point, North Carolina, this is when we dropped him off. He's at a great school for him, and that's the key. We need to put him in an environment where he can thrive. And by the way, we're not paying retail. So if you'd like to learn more about that and I can be part of your solution, feel free to knock on my door, use my free resources, and let's make sure that together we're creating better futures.